For more than 25 years, ErgoTech Systems has helped manufacturers and innovators connect systems, data, and ideas at industrial scale. Today, ErgoTech is redefining what's possible, combining low-code design, agentic AI, and edge-to-cloud scalability into one powerful platform. Our flagship platform, MIStudio, turns ideas into production-ready applications in minutes. Drag and drop simple, with vibe coding optional. From semiconductor fabs to discrete manufacturing and lot innovators, anyone can connect, visualize, and act on data. Without writing a single line of code, we help manufacturers, fabs, and innovators move from what if to what's next, with software that's powerful, flexible, and built for Industry 4.0. With ErgoTech, create Industry 4.0 applications that seamlessly integrate data for AI, analytics, and beyond. ErgoTech Systems.
Thank you. In 2017, I stood up on a stage at the Semiconductor Advanced Process Control Conference in Dublin in Ireland and said that AI/ML was the future of analytics in manufacturing. It was the future of how to manipulate data in manufacturing. And I was essentially heckled off the stage. They told me that was futuristic fantasy. It wasn't ever going to happen, but of course history has borne me out. Since then, I've been following applications, up to $1 million applications, where the AI fails not because the AI fails, but the AI fails because the data is not available. So it's a lack of data, not a lack of AI, that causes the failures. And so I want to address three topics today. First, I want to address this topic of the idea of a data product. How do we get data into a UNS in a way that makes sense? How do we get quality data into a UNS without, in a way that's scalable, in a way that works with edge devices, and in a way that we can work with that data? And that's essentially, over time watching this, I've come to the idea that a data product is the way to go. A data product is a philosophical concept that says that data is not a byproduct of manufacturing. Data is something that is of value to your manufacturing facility. It's something you should take as much care of as you do of your product in the facility. So this means that you need to define a product manager for it, and that product manager better be somebody who knows the data, better be somebody who knows the product. So we're not talking about handing this off to IT, we're talking about giving this to somebody who knows the product. In my case, that's a guy called Mike. Mike lives down in the basement. He's in a semiconductor fab. He's been down there for at least 25 years. He knows everything there is to know about data in that facility. He also knows a lot about bass fishing, so be prepared to learn a lot about bass fishing when you go speak to him. MIStudio is a low-code, no-code, drag-and-drop tool. And the focus is not necessarily on Mike being able to build applications with this, but if somebody's helping Mike build these applications, then the goal is that Mike should be able to understand what's being built, and he should be able to approve what's there. The last time I worked with Mike, we reverse engineered a STAFA protocol, which is an old building automation protocol from the 1990s, deployed 1,000 nodes of that, 1,000 data points or so to an OPC server, and that was his data product. We didn't call it that, and he didn't know he was the product manager, but in reality, that's what happened there. The other thing about data for AI/ML is it better be complete. You can't say, hey, I've got this data, let's do some analytics on it and hope it's going to work. And I've seen $1 million projects fail for exactly that reason. And so the other thing MIStudio provides is not only is it a drag and drop environment, it also provides the ability to collect data from just about anything. And so the most important thing, obviously, is PLCs. PLCs are the classic workhorses. And so we have the Allen Bradley PLCs, obviously. We have PLCs. We have just about every PLC known to man. But most importantly, we recognize that most fields are not greenfields. There are a lot more brownfield applications than there are greenfield applications. And so you need PLCs going back years. PLCs last forever. So we have the 9030. We have Omron. We have HostLink even for Omron, as well as fins for Omron. If you go down to our booth, and I hope you do, We have the Siemens guys tell me it's 47 years old. We have an S5 PLC sitting in that booth that's still running, and we can still collect data from it because we have drivers for the S5 PLC. And so the goal is collect a complete data set, collect it from anywhere. And so in our PLC world, what we do is we drop on a representation of the PLC on the screen. And this is a Control Logics PLC. And this is a Modbus PLC. And then we associate data points to those PLC. And here we have a representation of a data point. That data point is actually running down in the booth. This is actually, I'm actually connecting directly to a Modbus PLC. It's actually, it's a sensor that's down there. So the other thing is that if you don't have the data you need, you have to find a way to get that data. And one of the ways to do that is to add additional sensors. And so in the booth, courtesy of Banner, we have an IO-Link moisture sensor. Moisture seems to be a really important topic for just about everybody. We've talked to people who make concrete, you talk to people who make cement. It's something that Walker brought up at the beginning of the week, which is you need to know the state of your materials when you start manufacturing. You're going to make glass, you need to know the moisture of the sand. And so we have a sensor down there that is a retrofit, essentially. The concept is a retrofit for retrofitting to your facility to get the data you need. So we want to get all that data. So PLCs, we have every PLC. And there's a fun little demo going on down here just to prove we're not stuck with PLCs. This is actually pulling in the temperature for Dallas. What it does is it makes a call to the National Weather Service and then pulls the temperature out of that in centigrade and Fahrenheit. But you get the idea that we can start to make chains of logic with this. There are two other things that are important for producing data products. One is you have to have a UI of some sort. And I'm artistically challenged, so my UIs always look extremely bad. But frankly, realistic for data products. When you're building a data product, what you're usually looking to do is to just get some diagnostics on the screen. You're looking to get values up there. It's supposed to be information dense. It doesn't have to be elegant. And so these are all drag and drop. Obviously, I just dragged these on the screen. I did this whole block here I did just before the talk because I hadn't communicated with the PLC on the floor before. These are the values coming from the IO-Link sensor on the floor. The other thing you need is you need the ability to historize the data. You need the ability to store it somewhere. And again, the ErgoTech philosophy comes in. We have a representation of a database here. We can talk to just about any database. I mean, we've talked to Oracle DB2. This is MariaDB running in AWS. But the Postgres database that's part of the UNS is also something we've been communicating with. You just can't write to it. And the workhorse in our world, so then we have a whole suite of database components that we can use to manipulate data. And we can get metadata from the database. We can ask about tables. We can ask about various other things. But the workhorse really is this thing we call the triggered historical. And the magic of the triggered historical is if you're an OT guy and you're not a SQL expert, what you can do is check the create table box, and the triggered historical will manage your schema for you completely. It'll create tables for you. If you add more data to it, it'll add more columns. And the way that works is in our world, names are important. So you name the components based on, these will become the column names in your database. You input them to the triggered historical, and then somehow you have to trigger that database. And here I'm triggering it with a time base, but you could trigger it with a PLC, you could trigger it on an alarm, so you get a snapshot of the tool when an alarm occurs. So then the question is, how do I publish this to a UNS? And one thing that hang on, one more thing before we get there. This is the idea of, hey, I can put PLC points on the screen and I can hook them up and I can hook them to databases and I can do whatever I need to do with them. But if you want to scale this, we can import that data directly from anywhere, just about any file format. The reality of enterprise systems is a huge number of them are in Excel spreadsheets. And so one of the things we can classically do is an import an Excel spreadsheet, and all the values in this Excel spreadsheet become first-class players within this environment. So it's somewhere around here that somebody usually says, yeah, but that looks like Node-RED. You know, why did you bother to rewrite this thing? It's great for making flows, but why do you create something that looks just like Node-RED? And the difference in our world is it's not. We're not just creating flow, we're creating a whole model. We're creating a true data product that is a model of everything that's here. So all these components, when I publish them, will become live in the UNS, and they'll become live directly with the names that we've put on them here. And to do that, I need to define a connection to the UNS. And noteworthy here is that this is an MQTT5 connection. That MQTT5 came out in 2019, superseding to MQTT3, which I think everybody else is using. It has a couple of very, very important features. The two most important are, one is that MQTT5 has the ability to time out data points. So you can set a message expiration date and you can avoid having stale data in your UNS. The data will essentially disappear once you start publishing to it. The other is that I'm an AI guy, right? I want pure AI ML ready payload packets. I do not want a whole bunch of metadata stuffed in those payloads. And MQTT5 lets you sideline that as user properties. And so when be clear, I love metadata. So when we push metadata to the UNS, and we'll push anything including SESMI data, we don't push it in the payload. We push it as part of the user properties that are an extremely valuable feature of MQTT5. So that's our approach to life. That's why I'm passionate about MQTT5. It keeps the payloads clean, and it still lets you access the metadata if you need it. How did we publish these? I created a connection to my UNS, and all I did was I dropped in this wrapper. What this wrapper does is says, take everything that's on the screen that I said I wanted to export and publish it to the UNS. And if anybody's sitting there with MQTT Explorer, you will see that Mike's data product is now in there. It'll be in there under ErgoTech. It'll be in there under ErgoTech data product, Mike's data product, and all the components that are on the screen here will be published to that data product. And so I've created a data product. This is a completely scalable solution. I could create this, put it on an edge device, put it in Docker, put it in the cloud. I can create these indefinitely. So you go to the expert, you say, I want the data. I want to collect the data that you know about. I want you to be the domain expert. I want you to own this data. I want you to explain this data to me, and I want you to be part of creating this data product. And then you deploy it, and then you step and repeat and repeat and repeat. That way you have a UNS that has high quality, validated data, validated by the domain experts. So that's the first part. So the next question is, I built my UNS. I've actually got a clean way to do this. I can go ask Mike, I can go ask the other people what should be my UNS, and they know. I mean, Mike's not going to give you crap. He knows that data. He's going to put good stuff in here. So I've got a clean, quality UNS here. This is ProveIt, right? I got to show you some more stuff. So one of the things that comes in here is, I'm told one of these is not publishing, which might be a problem for me. I can connect to, we have, well, you've seen this a million times before if you've been sitting through these talks. So I have the ability to browse the architecture. We have the ability to browse, to deliver pure MQTT or Sparkplug or anything else, and I can browse that whole environment. But again, I'm an AI guy. This payload format, it's a magnificent format from the standpoint as it has, what happened to my chart here? It has a lot of metadata in it. Who's publishing this? This is a litmus point. So it's fantastic from the metadata standpoint, but I really wish they'd sideline that so I could get pure AI ML data. So I can give that to my data scientists and say, go run run-to-run control on this. Go figure out why this went wrong in an AI ML application. And so ErgoTech to the rescue. What we can do is we can say what we want to do is we want to pull out just the data. So there's a statistic that 80% of AI ML applications, the time on AI ML applications is taken in cleaning and normalizing data. And so what we've done here is we've got that to the point where this is one script where we go from having data with lots of metadata to having data that is AI/ML ready, that is ready to deliver to the data scientists. And again, another one, don't need to show you that one, another one here. So another script. How do we get these? This is where vibe coding comes in. So if I look at, say, the Opto 22 point, is this one? No, this one's publishing. So Opto 22 publishes in a format here. They have this information. So I can come in here and say, hey, I want to take the Opto 22 data and I want to make that into something that's AI/ML ready. I can simply come into my chatbot and say, okay, here's my request. The Opto 22 data looks like this. It's actually quite clean. It's got a name in there that's excessive, but other than that, it's okay. And I tell it what I want. I want the value, the timestamp, and the quality code. And OpenAI thinks about it for a while. And within our vibe coding environment, what it'll then do is it'll pop up a box and saying, does this code look good to you? It's thinking for quite a while. It doesn't usually think quite this long. And now I can just say, okay, I like that code. I accept that code. And you see that this value, when it updates, will go from being, well, it'll go from being a collection of JSON to being a value that's actually acceptable to the output. So that's the vibe coding piece. So we've got no code, low code. We've got no code where you can drag and drop components on the screen, and we've got, low code where you can actually go in and say, you don't have to be a Python expert. You can actually go in and say, hey, I want the chatbot to create that code. One other thing on that note is that it's a true Python environment. It's a full CPython environment. It's not Jython or something similar. And so you can actually run AI/ML models within that environment. And we're doing that down on the show floor where we're actually analyzing the image from, the data from a VGA screen, where we're screen scraping the VGA, we're doing OCR on a part of that screen, and that OCR is actually running within MIStudio in a Python block using a library from GitHub, essentially. So, and the significance of that is because you can run the AI/ML within MIStudio, you can get easy access to data. So again, we're on this data kick again. We're providing an easy way for you to get data into this application. In the data products demo, I showed that we could put a single block on the screen and publish everything to a UNS. In this demo, I've done something slightly different, which is I put an MCP server on the screen. So this MCP server will pick up all these various elements. If you're into MCP, it'll pick those up as MCP tools. And so I'm saying I'm putting this MCP server on the screen, and you will be able to access all these various elements on the screen directly through MCP, through an MCP server. And to make that a reality, what I would want to do is deploy this to AWS. Deploying it to AWS takes a hot minute, and so if you come to the workshop tomorrow, I promise I'll actually deploy it to AWS. But here's the deployed application running on AWS. So if I'd pushed the deploy button here, I would have ended up with this application running on AWS. And with this application, so we said, hey, we deployed this with a UI. And so that's the UI. Became a web page over here. If you had multiple applications, they'd show up in a menu down the side. But now I have my application running, but the most important thing for this application is I've also got an MCP tool running here. So I can come into here and say, okay, what do I want to know from this MCP tool? What do I want to know from my application? What sort of analytics do I want to perform? And the first thing to do is let's query what we've actually got here. And so ChatGPT will go off and it will access the application. It'll look at the application and say what data is available in this application, and it'll tell you that it's only exposing 2 tools, which is kind of weird. It should expose some more, but that's enough. And then I can start querying, and then it's prompt engineering. Okay, so now I want to know what the SESMI data associated with that data is. Just a query to make. I want to know the metadata. I want to know everything you can tell me about that data point, that yield efficiency. And so it'll go and query that data, that metadata, and it'll find all the background. It tells you the current value and various other things. Okay, finally I got a fun one, which is I need to justify my existence to my boss. And so since I've got all these tools and I've got a chat bot running here, is it going to do it for me today? Yes. I can ask it to give me something that will impress my boss. I can ask it to provide for me an image that will show off the great work I've been doing and justify my having been here all week. And so just a second, it says it's only got 2 tools, which is kind of weird, but. So by deploying this, I build this application. I link to the UNS. I have a GUI that I can show in AWS. I mean, I could deploy this locally as well, but AWS lets me get access to it from ChatGPT. It really puts me into boss mode. I can really go and start asking questions of it from a real chatbot. I don't have to use Claude Desktop or something similar. And so that's the whole deployment piece. Uh-oh, now I've only got 9 minutes left, so I have to move along here. So that's MCP. We have MCP access, so we can do analysis based on MCP or anything else. And obviously, I could do anything else I feel like with the data that I'm retrieving from the UNS. Okay, last demo. Last demo is Enterprise C. I promised I'd get you some. I promised I had access to all the difficult data, right? Enterprise C. If you've been following Enterprise C, they have all their data in documents. This is all sitting in PDF files, it's sitting in images, it's sitting in various other things that are actually quite hard to get access to. And so what we can do with MIStudio is we can say what we want to do is we want to take a look at those documents and start acting on those using AI. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, I'm going to take a look at an image here. This is a P&I diagram, a P&ID, that has information that is relevant to the chromatography line. And if you look, it's got the various points of data, and it's got various other information on it. But it's not very machine friendly. So in my application here, I can say, okay, I've got this image. This image is, in technical terms, an MCP tool, but this image has data I need. And I can use that image, and I can ask a chatbot to take a look at that image and decide what information is in that image in great detail. And so it can feed back all the information that's in that image. And so that's this chatbot here. I push this button, I got this chatbot, and now I have a description of all the information in that image. I have a complete description of that image that has been generated automatically by chatbot. With that information, I can start saying, well, what do I want to do? What I want to do is I want to build a diagnostic screen. I want to build a screen where I can start off with this image and I want to actually be able to troubleshoot some problem at the end. And so what I want to know is I want to know the measurement points on this image. So I click I'm clicking buttons here, but this could all be chained together. I push a button, and what it's going to do is it's going to go find all the measurement points. It's going to use this information that it got previously. It's going to look through this information and find everything that it considers a measurement point, and that's this data here. Having done that, oops, I gotta go live. Having done that, what I'd like to know is Enterprise C has some data in the UNS. So what I'd like to know, those measurement points are already being measured and already in the UNS. So what I want to know is, what are the topics for those measurement points? And so by subscribing to the wildcard, the Enterprise C chromatography wildcard, I can get all the topics. I can get all the topics that are available in chromatography. And with all the topics in chromatography, I can go back and take my measurement points and say, which is the topic that matches up with this measurement point? Once I've done that, then I can subscribe to that measure. I can subscribe to those measurement points, and we can put that, and we can do something useful with that data. So if I say, look, I want you to do that. I want you to go and make that matching. I want you to go find out what topics are in the UNS that are associated with these measurement points, and then I want you to subscribe to those measurement points. And we'll see that it populates this. This is my subscription. This is my component that's subscribing to all those measurement points. And you see that it starts to output the data from those measurement points. This is a tough crowd. Geesh. Come on. I've gone from, and I obviously didn't have to do this. It's a demo. I got to do one button at a time, right? But I could have started out with this from, I could have started out not as a button, but as a notification from a PLC that there's an alarm. And I could have chained this whole situation together, so you get a notification there's an alarm, and what you end up with is the data sitting on an HTML screen without anybody touching it. So there's no interaction required. So it's it's potentially completely autonomous. And one thing is, I really hate using the word agent when it's applied to AI, because I think the word is overused. I think the word has been diluted. However, if you want to know what agentic AI is when stripped of the marketing veneer, you just saw it. We're using chatbots, we're using AI chatbots to communicate with each other. And we're linking that with heuristic data. We're linking that with data that comes from the UNS. We're linking that with data that comes from the image. We're linking that with other data from the facility and using that within this environment to get a solution which is what are the values I actually need to be able to read. So that, to me, is the epitome of agentic AI. So let's go back to the beginning. I pulled up an image, and then I said to the chatbot, go and figure out what's in this image, and put that in this MCP tool here. But honestly, the image doesn't change that often. Yeah. Push the wrong button. The image doesn't change that often. So what happens if I say, what I just want to do is I want to take the text that was generated from that. I don't need to constantly analyze the image again and again and again. I just want the text. I just want the description of the image. And so that's what we have here in the form of a knowledge base. And what the knowledge base does is it'll take any document store, it takes the FTP data from Enterprise C, and what you can do with that, when you first do it, it'll index it. It'll take it a while to index it, but once it's indexed, it's got all that text, and then it can start acting on that text. And these files are honestly horrible. These are, even as PDF files, they're not searchable, they're not manageable, they're pure image files. So I don't know whether you've looked at these in any detail, but they really are fairly ugly files. But the knowledge base has ingested those, it's gone through them all, it's done OCR on those images, and now you have the information that you need to manipulate that image. So what do I want to know? Hey, maybe I want to know the material list for some process. So I've got this, I'm actually filtering on these files also have no batch number in, which is kind of weird for, a batch record. I feel it should have a unique batch number, but the batch number is the same in all of them. So I'm filtering on the file name. But I can go on and, given that file name, I can say, what's the material list for that file? And so it'll give me this whole list that's sitting over here that's absolutely unusable. I could, of course, I'm throwing this on the screen, but I could just as easily put it in the UNS. I could have printed it out in a report. I could have done anything I needed to with it to manipulate that data. The other thing that's a challenge is that we have signatures in here that are handwritten, but that's not much of a challenge for an LLM. An LLM is extremely good at OCR. It'll go and read those images. It'll OCR those images, and you will get a list of who signed this batch record, who is the person who is responsible for this record. And so you see that we have the handwritten signatures here, and we've pulled those out in a batch record in an electronic format over here. And that, again, could go into a UNS or anything else. So, and this is all automatic. The knowledge base does that analysis, and then you just get to use the analysis as it's done. So let's see. This is ProveIt, right? So I've proved that I can build a UNS based on data products and based on domain experts like Mike, right? And I know I'm going to have a quality UNS because I know I can collect any data. I know I can put the stuff in that I need, and I know that Mike will tell me exactly what I need. And I have access to data from the S5 PLC, from a VGA, from a 20-year-old building automation system, from any data, from a REST server that's telling me the weather in Dallas. From any server, I can get access to that data. So I've demonstrated that. I've demonstrated I can interact with the UNS by reading values from the UNS, and I can do analytics on that, in this case MCP, but I could do anything else on it. I could be using it for display, I could be using it to, could be doing SPC analysis on it, I could be running that into an LLM, I could be doing anything I feel like with that. And finally, I've demonstrated that the most difficult problem in these 3 virtual enterprises, Enterprise C, where they have all this information in image files, is accessible to me. I said I would get the hardest information, and I did. I got access to the data that is hidden in image files in an FTP server in Enterprise C. So if you feel I've proved it, maybe, wave your hands, because I feel it doesn't come much better than that. And I haven't shown a single slide. So.
All right. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Very good. So one of the things that we have to ask as the MCs as part of all of the sponsor sessions, what problem did you solve? How much did it cost? How long did it take? And which enterprise did you use? I think you answered the one about the enterprise. Obviously you used all of them.
All 3, yeah.
All 3? Okay, go ahead.
So first thing is, we've been building MIStudio for 20 some odd years. And this is a brand shining new release. We've spent the last year working with Los Alamos National Lab to deliver this new release of the software. And so a lot of the effort of building this has been building the software that's improving the reliability of the underlying software. So like some of these demos were built, well, last night, frankly. So how long does it take? If you're talking about a data product, you can pull together a data product in no time at all in MIStudio. The challenge is you have to go and get the data. You have to go find Mike. You have to ask him what he needs. You have to talk to him. You have to listen to him talk about bass fishing. And then you can build once you've got that data, you can then build your enterprise. You can build your data fairly quickly. So what's the cost? I mean, we're looking for lighthouse partners for MIStudio, and we'll certainly give you a price for that, but we have an official list cost of about those numbers for MIStudio. Okay, the MCP server and publish the UNS, again, is an MCP, it's a developer license. That one took a few days. That one took a couple of days to put together, no more than that particular demo, just because it's all drag and drop. If you're going to host it, if you're going to host it on an edge device, you've got a cost for hosting on an edge device. If you're going to host it on AWS, you've got the SaaS cost for doing that. Part 3, the knowledge base. A knowledge base is the same thing. Where do you want to host the knowledge base? Where do you want to land that? It's not that demanding in hardware, actually. So you could land that on an edge device. You could land that somewhere else. It's very, very fast to build that. Most of the effort in the knowledge base is the prompt engineering. What question do I want to ask, and how do I do that? But it's actually extremely forgiving of that. The prompts that are in there are. It's very generous in the prompts. When I have a knowledge base here and I say, what's my prompt? Most of this is about getting it out in HTML format. So really, my prompt is just choose the required material and show it in a form. So most of that effort is prompt engineering. Not much. A day to index and read values from the FTP server that's Enterprise C.
The 2,500, is that per month, per year?
No, it's one time.
One time.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, let's get to some of the questions. So it seems that you have connections to the plant floor and PLC and AI models in the same pipeline. Do you think this is realistic in production deployments?
Which one are we reading?
The top one. So it seems they have connections to plant floor PLC and AI models in the same pipeline.
We don't have them in the same pipeline. We have, I mean, the data product, you could, I'm not stopping you, but it's not, that doesn't necessarily make sense. It's an architectural question. The data products, you're using PLCs. And you're using PLCs or using anything else. Actually, yeah, we do have them. If you're reading a VGA, you're going to have AI in the same pipeline. So yes, but it's not. You're not likely to have an LLM in there. You're not likely to have a chatbot in there. You're likely to have a traditional neural network model in there. But it's your choice. If you need it, you need it, it's there. Most of the time in a data product you wouldn't, but in a next level up, you're probably not talking to a PLC, you're probably just using LLMs. When you vibe code a regular code, can you simulate the change to ensure it's working as expected, then make it live? If you were watching, there's a sim live button on the top of the screen. So you're right. I mean, one challenge that we face, we've been here a while, right? So one thing we know is that you don't want to start out in live mode. You don't want to start out communicating directly with the PLCs because then you're going to start changing things you don't want to change. And I resent number 3 from Anonymous. No shiny web-based UI, just because I have no clue about how to draw web UIs doesn't mean it's not there. You can build shiny web UIs. I mean, come on, you saw the appalling.
So one question I'd like to see too is, if you go back to kind of that pipeline design, right? If you're looking at the UNS that we've all been using for the virtual factory, there's roughly close to 1 million tags in there.
Yeah.
How does that look if I have to process through 1 million tags to build these? Do I have to build 1 million different little blocks there, or?
No, you can import those from Excel as one place. You can import them from any file. You can import.
I have to have 1 million boxes.
Nope. That was part of the data product discussion. Maybe I should have hit a little harder. That you can import. This is not Node-RED. We're building a model, and you can build that model by importing it from a file. You can build that model from anything else. I mean, I chose Excel here because Excel realistically is used everywhere. I hate it, but it's used everywhere. And so yes, you could import all the UNS tags directly into an application using an Excel spreadsheet or using whatever format you've got it in. We can import it.
But everything I want to do on one of those tags, I have to kind of create this pipeline of
What do you want to do to it? If you don't want
I'm just asking the
question. No. I mean, it's a fair question. If you don't want to do anything with it, then why are you importing it? If you do want to do something with it, then maybe you want to create a pipeline to do something with it. And if you can put them in blocks. You can say, hey, I'm going to do all these things together. It's all there.
Okay, the last one. Can you compare the artifacts that define the difference between plant A running version 1 and plant B running version 2, meaning model plus mapping plus app? And is there a rollback process? Is there any sort of, I guess on that one, developer chain, right? Can you go from a development environment to staging to production, or are we building pretty much in production?
Almost all of these applications I built against a local copy of the UNS, so that's certainly, I mean, nobody's going to deploy this directly to production, right? I'm not entirely sure, I don't know who asked that question. If you want to qualify it a little more, do you have a rollback process? Yes. One of the things we are working on getting is better change management. We have some minimal change management in MIStudio, and we're looking to get more of that, particularly the Git integration, which is an obvious way to go since everything's XML based. And that would give us rollback, certainly. I don't know where that question is really going. If you deploy a data product and it doesn't work, you can go back to the previous data product and deploy that instead. That's not really a problem. I don't know. If somebody wants to qualify it,
Yeah, and we'll say any other questions, obviously, they'll be down at the booth, so check out the exhibit hall. How do you define the definitions of MCP tools so that we make sure that the agents have the context of what to use?
Most of the time, agents, did somebody use agents in that sentence?
They sure did.
Most of the time, there's some minimal description of the MCP tool. But that's part of the goal of this metadata. We have the MCP metadata in the top, and you can actually describe in great depth what you want to do with that, what the nature of that tool is.
So if you think about what Walker said during his keynote, one of the things that we have to focus on as integrators and engineers in the new age of manufacturing is we have to build tools for the new generation of engineers. What is in the roadmap to, let's say, improve the simplicity or the look and feel, the usability, the UI, UX of the platform? Because I think we can all see it looks a little bit dated. So I'd like to know.
Not as bad as it did 6 months ago. It's really, at some level it's a little dated, but at some level it's not. It does what it does, and it does it very well. The obvious next step is that we can vibe code these blocks. So what you're talking about, yes, can I import something and join all the UNS pieces together in one shot? Yes, I can do that, and I can use an LLM to do that. So that opportunity is obviously sitting there, that I'm building a model, I'm not building a flow, right? So I can build that model using an LLM, and then I can just import that as this graph, as this model.
From a cybersecurity perspective, I noticed you had a lot of the usernames kind of closed there. What sort of protections against intrusion attacks, anything along those lines? What sort of cybersecurity measures are you taking to make sure the application is locked down, passwords are not being stored in plain text, all that good stuff?
Well, this is the development environment. What you do is you hit a button and it deploys it, and then those are, I mean, they're at least, at the very least, they're part of the code, but they're usually encrypted too. So password fields are obviously, yes, they're stored in some format where they're not easy to get at. So that's the whole point of the password fields. And
then the one that I always like to close on, we have a minute left here. If you could leave the audience with one thought about ErgoTech and what you guys have done, what would that be?
Data. Data, data, data. I mean, we love data. We love to be able to collect data from anything that's near impossible to collect data from. If anybody comes to you and says, you can't get data from that, then we'd love to hear from you, because we have succeeded in getting data from a lot of things that nobody's got any data from. Including, and please come down to the booth. I mean, the ViewSonic monitor is a feature of the booth that we have been collecting VGA data from that ViewSonic monitor and pushing it into the UNS. So, I mean, data.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Give a round of applause. Thank you, ErgoTech.